Hi guys, welcome to the CATWay. So in this video, we are going to solve our daily set. And before we begin, do not forget to like, share and subscribe. Also, you can go to catway.in for more info on the CAT course. Okay, so what do we have here is that certain number of players participated in a tournament. Now each player was categorized either as a pro or an amateur. Now an amateur would immediately turn pro once he had played exactly 3 matches with pro players in the tournament. There were 3 rounds in the tournament, and at the end of round 3, it was found that each player had now turned into a pro. Okay, so all the players at the end of round 3 are pro. Now, no player left the tournament before completion of round 3. Okay. Now, the table provides the information about the number of matches played in each round and number of pro and amateur players at the beginning of each round. Okay. Okay. Now, there are some missing values in the table. Further, the following information is given below that every match involved one pro and one amateur player. So all the matches are going to be between pro and amateur players. Okay. Second, it has been given that it is not necessary that each player played a match in every round. Okay. Then at the end of round 1, the number of amateur players was half of the number of pro players. And there were exactly 3 more pro players at the beginning of round 3 as compared to beginning of round 1. All right. So guys, what we have been given is that the no player left the tournament. Okay. So by coming into round 3, we have 12 pro and 3 amateur players. That means since the beginning, the total number of, and since these are the only 2 categories we have, we can say that the total number of players playing in the tournament is 15. Okay. The total number of players playing in the tournament is 15. From here, what we can say is that P1 plus A1, that is pro players in round 1 and amateur players in round 1, their total is also 15, and P2 plus A2 is also 15. Okay, so this is something we know. Acha, if you look at the round statement number 3, at end of round 1, okay, end of round 1, okay, that means P2 and A2. Okay, the number of amateur players was half the number of pro players. Okay, that means कि amateur players, ठीक है, is half of this. ठीक है, so basically what we can say that A2 is 2A2 is equal to P2. ठीक है, 2A2 is equal to P2. Now if you put that over here, ठीक है, so P2 is equal to 2A2. ठीक है, and there is another A2 which equals 15. So what we can say is that amateur players at start of round 2 is 5. Okay, so that means this value over here is 5. Okay, and the value over here is 10. Okay, the value over here is 10. The next statement tells us there were exactly 3 more pro players at beginning of round 2 as compared to beginning of round 1. So at beginning of round 2, we have 10 players as pro, that means, and which are 3 more than pro players at the beginning of round 1. So at beginning of round 1, we had 7 players, 7 pro players, and we had 8 amateur players. Okay, so now all these values are filled. Okay, acha. What we know is that every round in every match that was played between an amateur player and a pro player, right? Every match was there between amateur and pro player, and initially we have 8 amateur players. Okay, and what we know is that by coming to the end, what is happening over here is that all of the players are getting converted into pro players. Okay, and what is the condition for converting into pro? So the condition is that once they have played 3 matches with a pro player, they will be converted into a pro player. That means all of these 8 people, by coming to the end of the tournament, all of them have played 3 matches each. So the total number of matches in the tournament is 24. That means one more thing is clear, that N1 plus N2 is equal to, sorry, N1 plus N2 will be equal to 10 because the number of matches in round 1 is 14. Okay, so this is clear to us. Okay, so all this info is done. Now we can move towards the questions. So how many matches were played in the tournament? So the number of matches that were played in the tournament, we have already calculated to be 24. Option number C, 24 is the right answer. Coming to the second question. What can be the maximum possible difference between any 2 possible values of N2? Okay, so maximum possible difference between any 2 possible values of N2 is what we have been asked. Okay. Acha, if you have to see, what we know is that N1 plus N2, okay, N1 plus N2 is equal to 10. Okay, So if you have to maximize n2, n1 should be minimum possible. Okay, between them n1 should be minimum possible. Okay. Okay. Acha. Now what we know is that at two immature players, okay, there are two immature players who have converted into pro players after round two. Okay, because at the beginning of round two we had 5, and at the end of round two we have 3 immature players. Okay, that means 2 of the players have been converted. Okay. Also, we know that the number of matches in the round one was 14. Okay, and in those 14 matches there were 3 players who there were sorry, how many players are there? Okay, yes. So there are going to be 3 players who are basically converted into pro. That means all those 3 players must have played 3 matches each. So those 3 players have played 9 matches. Okay. So that means you are left with 5 matches for the other 5 matches for the other 5 players. Okay. Now because you have to minimize the number of matches in round 2. Okay, and you have to take 2 people from round 2, okay, coming into round 3 as pro. Okay. So out of these 5 matches, let's say that there were 3 players, okay, who played these 5 matches. One player played 2 of them. Okay, there was another player who also played 2 of them, and there was a third player who played just single match. Now, if you talk about, now see, this is minimizing and maximizing, so you have to take cases. Okay, so let's say you have to assume and play. Okay, so let's say these 2 players, they also played 1-1 match in your round number 2. Okay, they also made 1-1 match in round number 2. So when they played 1-1 match in round 2, they both came into the list of pro players. Okay, so what does it mean is then if you talk about the minimum number of matches that n1 should have, even if it has 2 matches, then also all the conditions are satisfied. Because what is happening is that you need, the only condition that you had to satisfy was that 2 players are going to come into come as pro after end of round 2. Okay. Now let's suppose that those 2 players had already played the 2 matches in round 1 and only 1 match was left. So both of them played 1-1 match each and they became pro players. Okay. So if in that case the value of n1 would be 2, that is only 2 matches were played in round 2, and because of that the value of n2 will be 8. So this is the maximum value of n2 that is possible for us. Okay. Now what do we have is, now we have to, because of any 2 possible values it is asking. Okay, so and maximum difference it is asking. So that means in one case you have to maximize n2 and in one case you have to minimize n2. Okay. So now when you go to for minimizing n2, in that case you will have to maximize n1. Okay, what you need to do is maximize n1. Okay, now what is going to happen is, okay, you have to maximize n1 and minimize n2. Acha, if you look closely at the end of third round, the 3 players who were immature players before beginning of third round, all of them have converted into pro players. Okay, now if these 3 players have been converted into pro players in this round, that means the maximum number of games these 3 players could have played up till round 2 was 2-2 match each. Okay, that means they still require 1-1 match each, all these 3 players. Okay, all these 3 players require 1-1 match each. So that means the minimum value of n2 that we can have is 3. The maximum value of n2 is 8, the minimum value is 3. So the maximum possible difference between them could be 5. So option number B will be the right answer. Okay, chalo ab aa jao. Acha, so from this what do we get? We get that n2 की possible values are, ठीक है, n2 के लिए the possible values are 8. ठीक है, in that case n1 will be equal to 1 and minimum possible value of n2 is 3 and for n1 will be in that case 7. Okay, so these are the things that we have. Acha, this is not 2, this is not 1 but 2. ठीक है, चलो आ जाओ थर्ड क्वेश्चन पे. So what we have been given is which of the following cannot be true. Okay, so n1 minus n2 is equal to 4. ठीक है, n1 minus n2 is equal to 4. What we know is that n1 plus n2 is 10. n1 plus n2 is 10. Okay, so if the difference between them needs to be 4, okay, if the difference between them has to be 4, that means one of them has to be 7 and the other one in that case has to be 3. Okay, then only the difference would be equal to 4 and the sum will be equal to 10. So this is the only possible case, and that case we see is possible. Okay, so statement 1 is true. Okay, come to statement number 2. Statement number 2 says n1 minus n2 is equal to 6. Okay, n1 minus n2 is equal to 6. That means the value of n1 needs to be 8, okay, and value of n2 needs to be 2. This is the only possible case when the n1 minus n2 could be equal to 6. Okay, otherwise it is not possible because you only also have to satisfy n1 plus n2 is 10. So taking into both the cases, we find that these two values are there. But you know that maximum value of n1 is 7 and minimum value of n2 is 3. So these values are not possible, hence statement 2 is not a right statement. Then coming to the third statement, which is n1 minus n2 is equal to 3. Now, being satisfying this, n1 minus n2 is 3. The only possible case is that n1 is 6.5 and n2 is 3.5. This is a simple equation thing, which you can all figure out on your own how we are able to get to this. Now, the number of matches cannot be in decimal. They have to be in integers. So statement 3 is also false. Okay. So the statements which cannot be true are 2 and 3. Hence, option number D, both 2 and 3 is the right answer. So this was a very good set, guys, and hope you have understood the set well. Thanks for watching the video.